Welcome back to Talking Points. When we left you before the break, we were discussing the cost implications of running Radio St Lucia as a public broadcaster. Now I want to ask you gentlemen a little more about the operational aspects, the utility that Radio St Lucia may or may not provide. One of the arguments made by the Prime Minister as well as the Minister with the portfolio for broadcasting, Mr. Fede, was that with the proliferation of so many commercial stations and services, that the essential service that RSL provides is already being provided by commercial entities, and so the station may not necessarily be needed as it once was when the market was smaller. You know, and it is true that we have had an explosion in private radio stations as well as television stations right now. So in this marketplace where people are competing for viewership and listenership, does a public broadcaster still have a role to play?
I believe there is still a role to be played. However, we must understand that when any establishment, any entity is established, it is established to achieve a specific objective. And I think what has the situation of Radio St Lucia is that when it was established, what it was meant to, the objective it was meant to achieve, no evaluation has been done from then. We have continued along the same process, not taking into consideration that the environment has constantly changed. And then you need to reassess. And as you reassess, probably if that was done on a continuous basis, we would not find ourselves in a situation where Radio St Lucia currently is. Because as you rightly said, the proliferation of other media houses or the broadcasting stations would definitely impact on your original objective. And if you do not evaluate or take this in the changing environment, but you continue to function the same way in a changed environment, obviously you're going to run into these kind of difficulties. And I think now the decision that is being taken by the government now was what that should have been done over probably a number of years ago, so that you would assess the situation and make whatever the relevant changes to fit within the current environment. That I don't think was done. And I think that this approach, and again, the government is not taking a final decision. We are looking at the options, and I think these are the things that are being considered.
I just want to ask Mr. Clary, before I ask you gentlemen, the government has not taken a final decision, yet it was a statement by the Prime Minister that Radio St Lucia will be closed. Is that not final?
Closed, yes, but you could engineer something. But that doesn't mean the operations or the functions would cease. But you need to find ways of doing it, more creative ways of doing it. So though they may say the closure of Radio St Lucia, I don't think the services offered are going to be terminated. I don't think that is what is.
Calix, you look like you have something to say. Tell us what you're thinking.
Maybe it's a battle of nomenclature. It's like the Prime Minister saying that Jazz Festival is finished, and then the next couple of days later we told him we still have a Jazz Festival. So maybe it's one of those situations where, in fact, Radio St Lucia is now just simply going to be subsumed into a larger public broadcasting focus. I mean, if you look at NTN, for instance, or GIS, Government Information Service, I mean, that brings no revenue at all to the government, but the government still sees it as an essential aspect of communications, of reaching out to people. So the question is that if Radio St Lucia had a particular role to play in terms of public education, in terms of reaching out, in terms of getting into areas where a lot of other radio stations are not going to get into. I mean, if you look at perhaps the spectrum of radio stations that are on air right now, a lot of them focus more on the music, on the entertainment aspect of it. And I think Radio St Lucia has tried to do that a little bit more, but of course it's not known in any way as that, in terms of the genres of music that they play. But there's still a lot that can be done in terms of education, in terms of bringing out knowledge to people, which perhaps they're not really going to be getting on the other radio FM channels and AM channels that we have. So I think there is definitely a scope to look at Radio St Lucia. As I said, the intention of the Labour Party was to look at a unified public broadcasting platform, which would have involved television, internet, as well as FM. I think that maybe we can also look at perhaps digital radio as another platform way to go. But I think there is a role to be played. And even if the proposal I think that is being touted right now by the Prime Minister is that Radio St Lucia will turn into a studio, a music studio and media training entity. But I mean, what better way of actually teaching persons? You could have a running radio station which is affiliated with Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, which is and actually teaches people, does internships, and persons actually have the actual live experience to do so. So I don't see how these things are necessarily incompatible. And if you look at, again, coming back to the example of NTN has to go and rent space, a lot of space out of Hiwanor House at a pretty penny. But then when you look at radio station, they own a property. I think it's valued somewhere in the region of $2 million. Excellent property, excellent location, right next to an educational facility if you want to make that liaison. And I think the potential there is quite real. I don't see necessarily the need to defund it if in fact your savings is what, $400,000? I think we spend a lot of money on lots of other things that aren't worth $400,000. So my take is that if we're going to go and subsidize a foreign entity, Ojo Labs, for how many millions of dollars, I can't see why we can't subsidize or support an entity like Radio St Lucia that is providing a very good service. Could be better, of course, nobody's denying that, but providing a service to the people of St Lucia at a cost of $400,000.
Well, Calix, you raised a number of different the issues, and I want to refocus on the idea of listenership and sustainability, Peter, when I speak to you. In terms of, again, the proliferation of commercial entities, and you did speak about the difference in programming, and that's something that I think that we'll come to later on in the show. But in terms of just raw listenership, Peter, do you think that Radio St Lucia can sustain the listener base that it needs to? And I'm not speaking about profit necessarily or financial in revenue terms, but just to be effective in whatever mandate that it has or will have. Does it have the ability to sustain the listener base that's necessary to make it, quote unquote, make sense?
Well, it depends on how you market Radio St Lucia, right? And I need to go back again to what the what the minister said. Okay, and I'm quoting here. It needs to go further to tell the story. It needs to be more educational. It needs to be more informative, so that it better complements the private media and have a more complete media environment. So if you say things like that, obviously you recognize the importance of Radio St Lucia. So what you do now, I said, you go back to the drawing board. If that's what it is, you get expert opinion on it, and you devise a plan as to how you're going to get Radio St Lucia to do that. And if you market the station and say, look, this is what Radio St Lucia is supposed to be, so the public out there understands what Radio St Lucia is and what its purpose is and the role it's going to play in national development. And then so you know, for example, if there's a hurricane coming, you can go to Radio St Lucia. If the programs for, say, your health, like every morning, say between 8 and 10 or 8 and 11, you have health programming. You talk about diabetes, you talk about all, a number of things that affect our population on a daily basis. So that's what you do. So people know every morning between, say, 8 and 10, I can go to Radio St Lucia, there'll be a doctor there, there are going to be health tips, so if it plays that role, not only that, to your advertisers that will realize, hey, you know something, I can probably do some advertising there because everything is clear, we know what the radio station is supposed to do, and people are going to tune into it. And trust me, when they have these programs on the stations, there are a lot of people listening, a lot of callers. But are we going on that route? So unless the government does the analysis and decides, clearly what is the route for Radio St Lucia to take in this current environment, then it's more like explaining stopping mud.
when it comes to the whole question of listenership regarding Radio St. Lucia as opposed to the other stations, I don't know if we can definitely say what the listenership for Radio St. Lucia is at present compared to the other radio stations. And yes, I believe, and you can ask yourself, what is it that Radio St. Lucia, what services that is currently providing that the other stations are not? And on that basis, you have to ask yourself, if the more commercial stations are doing the exact same thing, and you do not, and I cannot say with any level of definity that listenership to Radio St. Lucia has dropped. But in my assumption, I would assume that it has dropped significantly, because as the numbers increase of people providing the services, obviously, unless you are very good to maintain that, and I'm not sure that Radio St. Lucia has done that. So you need then, based on that, to really ask yourself, are the services that are being provided by Radio St. Lucia not being provided outside? And if they are, what measures can you use? Is it necessary to maintain it in its current form? What measures or what alternatives can you seek to colleagues talk about the asset base of Radio St. Lucia, as opposed to NTN having to rent space. Can you utilize these assets and which currently exist, and have NTN, instead of going to rent, make it one entity, providing the specific services that Peter mentioned, that you can go there and know if you go to St. Lucia for a particular thing. These are the things I think that need to be considered in doing that.
I think that what was very important, an important thing, a point that was raised in this segment, was the need for a data-driven decision-making. You said that we don't even know what the listenership is of Radio St. Lucia vis-a-vis the other stations right now. So I think that underscores that need for more, data-driven decision-making. Great discussion in this segment. We will be back after the break with more talking points. Stay tuned.